We've been working on the digital painting. We are so close. If I turn off, you'll know you're done when you turn off your shape painting underneath, and pretty much every part of it has been filled and colored with your refined paint. That means you've kind of acknowledged everything. Doesn't mean that everything is as important as everything else, but it gives you kind of confidence that at least you've built up a more interesting paint texture surface across it, right? So with my little Muppet self-portrait here, I'm just missing my glasses, and that's where compositing can come in and maybe help me out. Painting kind of fuzzy glasses, I would definitely do it on a separate layer. Same thing if I was doing like a mustache or piercings or earrings, other jewelry. You can always do that separately on as many different layers as you want. But to me, it's not super important for this right now. And that might be, if I want to turn this into a portfolio piece, I put in a little time outside of class to work on finishing that up. So instead, I'm just looking to finish it by addressing the things that feel the least finished. And that's in the shirt and the sweater, and then in the overall edges. Edge control is very important in painting. And I'm not zooming in and getting obsessed by the details, because an advantage of refined paint is that I can be always blending and building up a new interesting texture. I just have my left hand hovering over that option button to steal the new colors I make whenever I go across an old color at that lower opacity. And I like to paint it at about 60%. So I just need some reflected light on this shoulder. Use a little bit of the blue. Yeah. And it looks like a sweater and a shirt collar. Little things about the edge I can still work on. The shadows underneath. And then there's so many things you can do with these pixels once you've kind of got them where you want them. So that's what I'm going to show you in kind of my bonus finishing techniques. Even though I don't have glasses yet, obviously that would be something I would add. So first thing I can do, once I feel like I've got all the brush work done, and for the most part I do, I think there's just a little bit, I can build a little bit of warmth into the forehead here. Maybe around the eye. And I already showed you the smudge tool for kind of blending. And maybe I want a little of that in other places, like maybe the shirt collar, so it feels more like fabric and less like fur. So I might use that smudge tool and just kind of push that paint around a little bit. I'll zoom in so you can see what that looks like. You can use the navigator to do that. And you got to be careful with what looks like just white pixels, pure white. It's probably not exactly pure white, but it's always good to make it a little bit off-white, a little bit creamy. So I'm just going to swirl this a little bit, make it look less fuzzy, kind of clean up, like dragging my finger through the paint, the edge of the shirt collar at the top and bottom. And it will remember the last brush I used for the smudge tool. I'm just using the standard hard round pressure brush, but being sensitive to size really matters. or to the size being sensitive to the amount of pressure you put on the tip of your tablet really matters. And then I'm going to do that here as well. So it looks more like fabric. And you can see the direction that you smudge it really affects the look. Now what I like about using the smudge tool on the refined paint layer is that it won't pick up any of the pixels from the base paint. Now, so if you have really dark pixels on the base paint layer, like these blacks, those come through from behind, but I'm not going to accidentally blend those into my shirt collar. So you get pretty complicated color combinations. But the smudge tool will not invent new colors, right? It won't actually add or even combine the colors. It will just soften the edge as it pulls pixels from one area into another. So if you use it without building up enough pixel variation, it just looks really artificial. Which is why the smudge tool is often just a finishing technique to soften, smooth, or blend. Okay, and this shows me maybe underneath I can do a little bit of that just for the collar and those shadows. And now I go back to painting, and I'm just going to reinforce those shadows a little bit. I'm going to go to a lower opacity, maybe even something as light as like 30. So it builds a little bit more slowly. Especially under the shirt collar. All right. Now, other edges that kind of need work. Just blending out the kind of furry surface of my Muppet self-portrait, and then looking at the edges of things like the hair. And now I'm at an even lower opacity, so it's just very subtle. And you could do this forever. It's hard to kind of know when you're finished, but that's what deadlines are for. They tell you when you gotta submit something. So now I'm going to return to my base paint layer. So I'm going to lock my refined paint. I could see what it looks like with it just turned off, with the base paint turned off. And sometimes it's good to make decisions that way. So if I do that, I can see that maybe I can make the eyes just a little bit darker on the refined paint layer. And again, I don't use pure black. I'm always going to, oh, somehow I switched to the pencil tool. I don't know how that happened. I'm going to hold down Option, steal those. I'm only building it at 30%. I'm just going to restate the darks in the eyes a little bit and in the eyebrow. But I think I need that base color underneath, right? It kind of gives it that intensity. So again, what are the 3 layers required for a complete digital painting process? You need a white background. You need 100% base painting, where you just kind of fill up the shapes that you want. You can have sketches over the top of that, or you could have built your base color on top of your sketches, right? Which you can certainly do. But the third requirement, the only 3 things I require are blank white, base paint, and then a refined paint on top. And what you're going to turn in is this, your finished, quote unquote, finished painting just on a white background. Here, I'm just going to finish up the hair a little bit. Take it back up to about 60. Aha. So now, how do I get it where I like it? Well, I'm going to go lock the refined paint layer, unlock the base paint, and now I can trim out the edges. So I could use the eraser. This is the first time I'm using the eraser. I'm going to use it at 100%. I'm going to use it fairly large, like we've done in compositing. And I'm going to erase away from the edges where I think the base paint is not as clear or is getting in the way. Just kind of trim out the shapes. There we go. And then sometimes you'll get little flyaways in the refined paint layer. So then I can use the eraser to cut those away. Remember, I lock every layer except the one I want to affect. Otherwise, you can do a lot of damage before you realize it if you're affecting the wrong layer, which often happens. And if you erase away too much, like I did, just hit Command-Z. And then you realize, oh, those dark blues are on that base paint layer. So I'm going to unlock that. Just softly back that away. So it's kind of cleaning up your painting. And then if you feel like you're missing something, you can go back to your brush and we can get it in there. You can even, if there's like gaps in it, you can even paint with your brush, like down here, on your base paint layer, and it will go behind all your refined paint. So if those hard edge shapes are kind of coming through a little too strong, you can soften them. So this is something you can't do with traditional painting, painting behind the refined paint layer. Kind of filling in those gaps. Now, again, we do digital painting here at the end of the semester because it's really helpful in our final projects to have this as a way of controlling pixels on top of anything else we might do, on top of compositing, on top of digital coloring, on top of vectors. You could always just go in and kind of refine things with your digital painting. It's a good skill to have. Kind of gives you confidence that you can retouch and kind of finish off everything to the level you think most necessary. Okay, was there anything else? Let's get the top of that ear. So I have little flyaways here. That's on the base paint layer, so I'm going to erase those with the eraser. Why don't I just use white paint and paint them away? Well, I want to have the option of putting in my own background, right? So if I turn the gray background on, I'll see those little flyaways. Some of them are okay, but I want to erase those away. I don't want to have just big chunks of white paint editing it. All right. So I think that's going to do it for me. So now, what are some, well, how can I turn it in? This is the basic approach. How do I turn it in? I turn off everything except for that white background. In fact, I can even turn that off. And then I'm going to save it as a JPEG. I'm not going to crop it just because I might